Hey there, true believers. You're tuned into Baxter Building Radio via the Negative Zone feed, and welcome to episode 29 of the Fantastic Four Fancast. My name's Nate Charles, and I'm your host. And as always, I am joined by my co-host. His name is Shane Murray. How you doing tonight, Shane?
Pretty good, I think. It's been a hell of a week, so pretty good.
I'm right there with you. I got violently ill over the past week. It was terrible. So now I'm starting to feel a bit better. We'll see how this episode treats us. But yeah, what have you been getting into?
Well, I have been getting into nothing because every time I try to get into something, something else happens. Recently, I had a death in the family, and that was out of nowhere, and no one told anyone, so that was out of nowhere.
Oh, geez. Well, my condolences, buddy. That's rough.
Yeah, it was weird. Like I said, I kept looking for a win, and all I kept getting was negatives, and then I had this week happen. So like, I hope tomorrow goes well because tomorrow's SmackDown. So I hope it lives up to Freya's dreams in her eyes.
Yeah, I hear those ticket prices came down.
Oh, dude, they came down hard because they didn't sell it out,
Wow.
and because like right now the cards two promos or three promos and three matches or something like that.
So that's the thing. They put those ticket prices so high initially, and my interest is just gone because there's barely anything on the show now. So I don't know.
Dude,
Just
that's
doesn't
the
even out to
second week
me.
in a row because like SmackDown last Friday was only four matches and promos.
Well, it's like, what's really the point of paying all that money? I mean, I'm glad you're taking your daughter to just see something that you both enjoy. I had to get out of it because literally, whether it was a TV show on the regular or even their pay-per-views, they have like four matches. That's it. And I don't know. It's not for
I
me anymore.
mean, yeah, their pay-per-views are you basically four matches because there's always like two matches that are just what, like a minute 20?
Anyway, for those of you who
Bang.
needed your WWE fix, we've gotten it out of the way for you. For those of you who are here for Fantastic Four content, today is a very special episode. We have a special guest today, Shane.
Yeah, we do, and I'm really excited to talk to him.
Ben Harvey is joining us today. So we're really excited to talk to him, and I think we've kept him stashed away in our green room long enough. Let's get this interview started. Ben Harvey is an acclaimed cover artist known for his striking painterly style and dynamic character work. His notable works include variant covers for Boom Studios' Mighty Morphin, Titan Comics' Horizon Zero Dawn, as well as Flash, Supergirl, and Harley Quinn for DC Comics. Marvel readers will definitely recognize his work from the covers of Danny Ketch Ghost Rider, Sentry, West Coast Avengers, and Captain America. We're thrilled to have him on the show today to talk about his creative journey, the artistry behind his unforgettable covers, and his recently completed nine-issue run on the One World Under Doom event series. Ben, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
Hey Nate, how are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I guess to get started, would you care to tell our listeners how you got started in the comics industry? What influences helped in developing that signature style of yours? Because it is very distinctive.
Oh, thank you very much. I guess we can start way back when everything, the Big Bang happened. I guess my origin story uh, took foot. I had taken a after school program when I was in grade school with a mentor of mine, who still is a mentor of mine, Jamar Nicholas, who's a Philadelphia-based cartoonist. And it was one of my very first times that I got to see an adult do comics in person. I before that time, just these fabled comic professionals were just these fabled people that I would never thought to have met in person. But he was one of the to that point, he was one of those guys that was actually living it and doing it in person. That was really a eye-opening event for me. And since then, I had taken up. I knew I wanted to do drawing at some point in my career. I just I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do video games at one point, but comics were always kind of in the back of my head. I wanted to do something with drawing. And even my mentor told me, like, hey, comics drawing illustration just isn't comics. It's many different things. So Throughout college, I was influenced by anime, influenced by video game art, all different types of stuff. And when I left college, majoring in animation, I thought I'd be doing that, but unfortunately, oddly enough, I didn't like laboring in front of a computer doing animation. Um, it's probably something you should think about before you go into that major. But being a kid, you just kind of like want to do something that's like sounds cool. Not exactly. You don't really think what goes into being an animation major, an animator professionally. How much hard work goes into that. Bless the people that do animation these days. It's very very tedious and very times uh, painstaking craft to master and learn. It just wasn't for me, unfortunately. So after college, I kind of kicked around, doing odd jobs here and there, but always kind of keeping a foot in illustration. I wanted to do something involving illustration, I just didn't know what. And I assisted. I was an assistant for another artist here in Philadelphia who had owned his own comic studio. And at the time, he was freelancing for Tokyo Pop, and I wasn't really doing anything big there. I was just kind of working under him. He was the head artist there, and I would kind of fill in with backgrounds, or if he needed a crowd scene drawn, I would draw in a bunch of people in the background of a city scene somewhere. That was my job. Um, and at the same time, I was doing a very heavily manga influenced style. Obviously, I wasn't anything. I was nothing. It looked nothing like what I do today. Oddly enough, I wanted to be a manga illustrator. I was dead set on doing that, and then the market kind of fell out underneath that. I think back in the late aughts, as Tokyo Pop went under. I think a lot of the manga work headed into the direction of like web comics and things like that. You couldn't really get work as like a manga illustrator here in the States. It's more for it's more for the Japanese to do, and like other countries, they have their market buckled down. You're not going to do it better than they do. So for a freelancer, it was very hard to get manga work here in the States. So I was like, well, I guess this is the time I should probably try to maybe steer my style back onto like an American traditional comic influence, and that's exactly what I did. I found a bunch of influences that I was looking at. One being like obviously Alex Ross. You can't avoid that guy. Adam Hughes and all those guys were doing, making their waves in comics. Also, Olivier Coipel was making waves, and so anyway, so I past all that, I was always working in some illustrator capacity until the point where I got into. I was working an odd job here in Philadelphia, and it just so happens one of my coworkers was one of the original Turtle illustrators from back in the '90s. He had worked on the Turtle comics way back when, and I asked him. I was like, "Hey, would you mind giving my info to one of your editors there?" And he was so um, gracious enough to give me that info and or to pass along my info uh, to his editor there. And that's where I got my first like professional work was through that contact. And things kind of took off from there. I wanted working for Valiant. I did some work for Valiant too on a few books. And aside from that, I did work for Aftershock, doing horror themed books as well. And then from then on out, I was still like doing like the show circuit, doing a lot of shows, maybe like 10 plus shows a year all over the country through my art rep who I'd found at the time. And my art rep was, we were both in Philadelphia together at one of the fan expos. And Marvel was there doing portfolio reviews, and I asked my art rep, "Hey, can you please get me a sit down with CB Cebulski? I mean, this is the time to do that, while we're here." And I'd known CB, not really known CB, but I, had portfolio reviews with CB and his editors before, but nothing. They always looked at my work and they said, great work, kid, but you're a little rough on the edges. Keep in touch, like that. So it's exactly what I did. I went home and I tried to. I did what I did best. I drew and drew and drew and painted. I learned how to paint. Uh, you know, uh, I was an amateur painter. I wasn't professional like I am now. But I, did my best, and I was also at the same time building up a social media following. I was doing a lot of posting on my social media accounts like Instagram and Facebook, just posting like fun stuff that I was working on, like commissions and things like that, and um, that had really helped me kind of like build my portfolio up to that point to have that sit down with CB, and he gave me the green light. He's like, okay, we'll take you on, email us when you get home, and we'll go from there. And that's how I got my first uh, like Marvel cover job was that weekend. I had Fan Expo Philly circa 2002, 2003. I can't remember exactly when that was. No, actually, no, it was a little further than that. It had to be maybe 2001, maybe 2021, excuse me. And yeah, and my first cover work was Predator, a Predator book, which is like amazing, being a Predator variant cover. You asked the kid that was taking um, that after school program in the early aughts, or no, early '90s, if he was going to be working on a Predator book in 2022 or 23, he wouldn't have believed you. The experience has been very humbling and very gratifying. Since then, I'm very lucky to have what I have in life. I hope that answers your question,
No,
Nate.
no, it absolutely does. It absolutely does.
Okay.
It sounds like a lot of hard work that paid off.
Can you take us through your artistic process from like how you start it out to go through to the finished piece?
Yeah, sure. Um, so, I mean, if you're talking about cover work, um, I usually get an email from an editor, um, and basically the email pretty much says, "Hey, we have this cover. We have well, we have this book here. We'd like you to do a variant or like a series of covers for it." And it basically involves just a brief description about what they want to see. Sometimes it's very descriptive, um, because it has to, tell the story to a 9 book story arc. If it's just a variant, which is, in my opinion, way more fun, because those emails usually involve, "Hey, we have this book over here. We like a variant for it. All we ask of you is to feature this character and maybe this in this costume, and the rest is up to you," which is phenomenal. When you tell an artist you have an open canvas, you can go crazy on that's a good day in the illustration world. And so you take that concept that they give you, and I go into I work primarily digitally when I'm doing these things. Just because working digitally when you're roughing out like thumbnails and things like that, it is just way faster and easier than working on paper. And so I'll take that initial concept that they give me and I'll put it into my program that I use mainly is Manga Studio. Used to be called Manga Studio. Now it's called Clip Studio Paint. And I'll do a series of rough thumbnails off of that. I was actually doing that earlier tonight before I got on the phone with you guys. And I usually do 3 or 4 ideas. So say if it's like, Spider-Man, they want Spider-Man swinging across the city. I mean, that could be interpreted like 40, 50 different ways. So um, I'll try to flesh as many of those out as I can, eliminate the ones that I don't like doing or the ones that I don't think work. And then I'll send those into the editors. And then they'll take it from there. They'll take it into their bullpen and kind of knock it around, see if, they can be approved upon, or if there's, they've already had like 2 covers this week with that the concept that you send over to them in it, then they'll say, hey, could you like rework it again? But if it's a good day, they'll say like, hey, uh, option A looks great, let's go with that one. I'll say okay, thumbs up too, and then from there, I'll start roughing things out and taking that initial concept and roughing things out in Clip Studio Paint, and then to get a week later you have a final product. I don't want to get too technical with what the itty gritty is all in between all that, but basically that's how it works. If we're talking traditionally, I think it's a little more informative. Traditionally, I'll do everything I just said. Only when I get to the thumbnail part, I will rough it out on paper as opposed to doing it digitally. And then it starts with a series of like washes, of watercolor washes, and maybe like wash, and pencil too. I'm a very multimedia artist. I use whatever it takes to get the job done. If you're talking, to me on one particular day, I could be using like airbrush, gouache, and acrylic, watercolor, all different types of stuff, marker too as well. So it really depends on what project you're talking to me on, or what particular character I'm working with. I'm even so far as I've gone to take oil painting classes too. So that's also my repertoire too. So I could either be using gouache, watercolor, color pencil, oil paint. It's a ton of different weapons in my tool belt right now as far as mediums. So, and generally it takes me about like, if you want to know about time frame, digitally painted cover takes me like a week, sometimes 2 weeks, depending on the complexity of it, and also revisions too. Some editor, you'll turn a project in sometimes thinking it's finished, and they'll hand it back with some notes, which is understandable sometimes. I always appreciate it when they catch things that I don't see. So I hope that answers your question. That kind of gives like hopefully a rough rundown of A to B when it comes to doing these covers and illustrations.
Oh no, yeah, that does. That absolutely does. Because that's kind of what I was wondering. We do have like a friend of ours that used to work for Marvel, and he used to do the rough outlines and send them out for the covers to be done. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if they still did that stuff or not.
Yeah, it's all digitally. I mean, I'm sure back in the day it was, obviously like all through the mail. I can't imagine doing that stuff through the mail, but yeah, it's much faster, obviously, to do it digitally these days.
So, with your Fantastic Four related work, which obviously includes the covers to the entire One World Under Doom event, how did Marvel first approach you for that project, and what was your reaction to working on those characters, particularly Doctor Doom and the FF?
Well, funny story about that. The One World Under Doom books. When they initially approached me, I was really busy with like 3 or 4 different other probably variant projects that I was working on. And so they had mentioned it, and I didn't really think too much about it. And I think it was towards the end of the year, and I was kind of like huffing and puffing, like I was like really, really on the gun with a few different things. And I was like, you want, and then they put this project, One World Under Doom, under me. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I have time for it, unfortunately. So I shoot back, Tom Brevoort is the one that emailed me initially about it. And I was like, Tom, I'm sorry. I can't, I can't, I don't really have time to do this right now. I'm sorry. I wish I could, And he's like, he goes back to the editorial bullpen. He's like, Ben doesn't want to do this book. Is he sure he wants it? He doesn't want to do this book. I think you should do this book. My main editor there, the head editor, comes to me and he's like, you really should do this book, Ben. We'll make room in your schedule to do this book. And so I was like, okay, if you guys want me on it and you're willing to clear my plate and to make room for it, let's go ahead and do it. So I was completely under the radar about it until I believe we got to 2 or 3 issues in, and I got to see how big of an event this was for the Marvel book universe. Uh, and it's I had obviously I'd drawn Doctor Doom in the past, for commissions and things like that. I believe it was the very first time I got to do them professionally, and so I wanted to make sure I did Doom right. I did my research. I designed armor that I can't take entire all the credit for it. It's this armor is based out of a few different references out there, obviously. But I wanted to make sure that when I did Doom, he was big, he was powerful, and he, yeah, he just seemed like the Doctor Doom I had grown up with over the years. I didn't want to take too many liberties with the character. Like I wanted to make sure I pay homage to him and the lore and canon that had come before me. So, um, and yeah, it's been a great ride. I mean, you get not only get to draw Doctor Doom, I got to draw the entire Avengers, the current Avengers team. With Iron Man and Captain America and all them, Scarlet Witch, and Ben Grimm. I got to draw Ben Grimm too, which is always fun. With his like crazy rock patterns, I have to get just right when I draw him. Yeah, it's been a really fun ride. It's a real honor to be able to work on such legendary characters, especially Grimm and the Fantastic Four, obviously, and um, yeah. I hope this answers your question. I kind of get carried away with these responses, but yeah.
Well, not at all. Be as long-winded as you want with these. We're just happy to hear it. So, speaking of Doom, I mean, he is obviously a very iconic character, and the visual legacy around him is just massive. What aspects of Doom's design or personality do you most enjoy capturing when you draw him?
This came up recently at a comic convention that I was at. Because some people had asked, why don't you draw? When you draw Doom, you don't really draw the eyes. You don't really draw his mouth within the mask. And I think for me, that's the most fun to draw and design because, I mean, for me, Doom is a person. You don't, the guy, Victor is it technically he's in the suit, but Victor's gone. There is no Victor anymore. It's only Doom. And so when I draw, Doctor Doom, I like blacking the eyes out. I don't like drawing too much detail in there. I like blacking out the mouth because really it's Doom is the suit of armor and the cloak. So I think that that is the most fun for me to draw. If it and also his like cape and cowl, that thing could be like all different number of ways, on his head. So and how you design it is really it goes to creates different lighting patterns and things like that if you want to get technical about it. But for me mainly it's that mask. That mask is so iconic.
Back in one of our previous episodes, episode 21, we were covering volume 7 of Fantastic Four. I believe it was issue 26 where you did a Doom variant cover,
Hmm.
which was amazing. And one of the things that really stuck out to me about that cover is the fact that, like you say, with Doom's armor and his cloak, it all has very specific textures. Can you talk about the technical challenges of illustrating those elements while still making everything so dynamic and expressive? Because you do a marvelous job with it.
Oh, thank you. So the question is basically how do I know what are my favorite aspects of designing this costume?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not, Shane's more of an artist than I am, but I'm always kind of curious as to how you go about, capturing things like textures when you're, either drawing or painting.
Right. Yeah, Doom's costume obviously is the most challenging because obviously of all the crazy reflections and highlights and little details that could be within his armor as well as his mask. Um, I believe going from issue 1 to issue 9, I believe I've grown like a foot in drawing reflections because every issue I believe I drew him with like really shiny armor. And you can, portray his armor in a different number of ways. It could be like dull armor. It could be like, not like a dull, but like a a metal that doesn't really like capture that much light, reflect it back to you like a chrome armor, as opposed to like other types of metals out there. Um, and so that yeah, I had to really learn how to do reflections on that kind of like chromish looking metal. Um, by grabbing like tons of different references. I have like a Pinterest folder full of like 1,000 different like reflection references, now. And because I love how some artists like are able to capture light reflecting over that off that kind of material. Um, and not only do you have, not only is it reflecting the light, his armor is not only reflecting the light, it's also reflecting everything around him too. So say if like his armor is like near his cape and cowl, like you may catch a little bit of that green in there. If you stand next to a character that like the Red Hulk or something like that, for example, that some of that red is going to be on his armor too. And nobody does it better than like Alex Ross. I mean, he's just you know he leaps and bounds. You know the amount of artwork that I'll ever do, and his technical execution is phenomenal. Like it's photorealistic reflections and things like that. So um, I really needed to get those my reflection work down, and also too like being able to like portray the weight of his armor too. I wanted it to seem big, and not really bulky, but like big and um, has some functionality to it as well. I mean, you can draw like some people can you can draw like metal like almost like the very first iterations of Iron Man. A lot of artists, drew Tony just didn't have any joints to them to his armor. He he just goes kind of like this liquid metal suit that he was wearing. Which is fun to think about, back then. But I think nowadays, like with all the Marvel movies and things like that, and all the Iron Man movies, I believe like it's added a certain level of like a technical aspect to how you think about armor. And so I wanted to kind of portray that too with Doctor Doom's armor. Make sure all the joints made sense. If he had his arm up like this, you can kind of see some of the work in his armpit. The work goings on, the mechanics of all that. I made sure were there. And that kind of goes into like a lot of the artwork that I do. I always try to make sure I do enough research on what I'm working on, so it makes sense. If you were to put, say like one of the covers, if you were to make that into like a diorama or something like that, you could actually replicate um, Doom's, suit in real life and not have to like take, liberties with my artwork to make it happen in real life. So yeah, I would say like his armor is like the one of those things that really I had to like really learn how to do reflections and really up my up the ante with my skill levels with these covers. Yeah.
With that Doom variant cover from Volume 7, issue 26, the other thing aside from the armor that really stuck out to me was you gave him kind of his cloak kind of a white furry collar. And it's rare, I guess, for me, aside from you bring up Alex Ross, but just seeing that kind of detail come out with painted covers.
Yeah, yeah. With that Fantastic Four cover, I was on that the One World Under Doom book, and when they approached me about it, I was like, I would like to do something different this time around because I've been drawing Doom the same way for like probably up to that point, like 4 or 5 issues. I'm like, well, there's other ways of like portraying Doom, and I wanted him to seem more regal, you know, on that cover. So I'd seen him around with like this big furry like mink, I guess it's mink collar on. And so like that'd be kind of badass to do. It would kind of like amp up the his badassness, if that's even a word, badassedness uh on that cover. And to make him like I said before, like to make him seem more powerful, the Fantastic Four is like falling all around him. They can't, hold the candle to Doom in this one instance. And yeah, I thought, to that point, I did him like 4 or 5. I didn't like drew him like 4 or 5 different ways in all those issues. I'm like, well, yeah, that'd be more fun to kind of vary things up this time.
Well, you certainly did that.
So, was there any particular like comic era or artist that made you like that drove you to like how you decided to design Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four when you were going through those covers for One World Under Doom or even the issue we were just talking about?
Era in comics. I can't specifically say what specific era of comics I was, drawn into or inspired by. I think it's the whole pantheon, of comics up to that point. I'm a kid of like the 80s and 90s, so if you could draw from anything, if I were to draw from anything, it'd probably be in that era. But I'm a fan of like Kirby and all those guys, Buscema. If you have to name some names off the top of my head, they were, the kings of my childhood. Their comics and styles kind of all led you know, to what you see today out of me. When I draw or when I sketch or paint the Fantastic Four, I'm always going for those iconic blue and white costumes that work so well. How could you ever deviate away from any of that? The same with Doom. I I did take some liberty. I mean, there are some Doom designs from the Kirby era and from the 60s and 70s that I think look kind of outdated. This big like rectangular, you know, eye holes and things like that. Too many rivets. I believe rivets were kind of a thing of the past. I don't like drawing rivets on like Doom for some reason. I think that makes them look a little dated. Nothing's anything wrong with that. More power to people that love rivets, but I think if you don't do it right, it makes him look like he has acne, a bad case of acne. So standing in 2025, I believe it was, and it's Victor Von Doom. I think he would have done away with rivets at this point. It's such an archaic feature to have on your costume. So, um, but yeah, I didn't mean to turn this into like a critique of like the Doom, the classic Doom outfit. But that's one thing I chose to leave behind, I guess, is those aspects. But yeah, I would say, to sum up my answer, I think I would say 60s, 70s, 80s. I'm a child of that era, so everything up to that point, I guess, um, is what it came. What is what formulated what I put down on these covers today.
Hey, it's okay. You can critique whatever you like. We critique things every episode. So,
I gotta be nice. I don't want to be one of those guys.
so is there a specific cover that you created for the One World Under Doom series, or even that variant cover that we constantly talk about, that you feel best represents your vision for the character, and why so?
I've got to think for a second. I'm sorry. I think I think that last cover. Well, I'm going to split it between two. I'm going to say I believe it was issue 6 or 5 or 6, where Doom is ripping Reed in half. That was like you just see the ferocity of Doom. And there's one of the rare occasions where I had to draw, I actually draw Doom's eyes in that on that cover, through his mask, because I think you needed to see the emotion in his face as he's like tearing Reed in half. I believe it's that one, and I believe it's the last one too, where you see Doom just like in this disheveled state, and he's like, I wanted to put across, he's killed most of the Marvel universe, to get to this point, but now I have to draw him like power. He's still powerful. He's still got size on him. He's still got his powers and everything like that. But I had to draw him in like just a down state, you know and that was a challenge. I feel like that was actually one cover I initially had done as done one way, and then I had gone back to the editors, and I wanted to make sure that I really put across the emotion in that piece. Um, so yeah, I think between those two covers, yeah, I think that really, um, those are my best ones. I think of the entire series. That I really sat down and put a lot of thought and time into. Not that I didn't say I didn't put thought and time into all of them. They were all my babies. I always make sure I put 110% in everything that I do. Um, but those two actually stick out in my mind as ones that are memorable to me, very memorable. They'll take to my later years of my career and say, look, those were the ones that that really stuck out to me. Um, I think more of a quick backstory of like the number five issue, I believe it was, where Doom's ripping Reed in half. They come to me and they were like, "Yeah, we want Doom ripping Reed in half." I'm like, initially, I'm like, "What? Wait, what?" But like, what? Keep it PG-13, obviously, no blood and guts. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see what we can do here. Um, and so that was like, not only was it fun to draw Doom and have that whole thing stand out, but it's also a learning process in how to skirt around the blood and gore, of like, a character getting ripped in half, a rubber man getting ripped in half on a comic cover. Um, that was really a learning process there. Um, and so yeah, I think to sum up my answer, yeah, it's I believe it's number five, ripping him in half. You see the ferocity of Doom, and then you'll see like the other side of Doom on number nine, where he's like fallen and he's in a very contemplative mood. You kind of get to see a nice arc there of emotions and covers. So, but those are like if you go up, the 10 pole would be number five, and then you kind of go scale off from there down to number nine. Nice swing of emotions. So, I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it definitely does. If you had the opportunity to do another Fantastic Four based story, what would your preferred scenario or character focus be? Would you want to strictly stick to doing just covers, or would you ever be interested in moving on to doing interiors?
Yeah, certainly. It's always like in the back of my head. I have been offered spots to do interior work with Marvel before. Unfortunately, I'm at the point in my career where I'm very like nitpicky with my work, and so I can't pump out like 23, 24 pages a month. I'm just not at that age anymore where I can stay up all night and you know amass that amount of work that quickly. So if I were to do it, it would be something possibly with a script. Maybe it's like a one shot that I could take maybe 6 or 7 months with around that time frame, and just have fun with it. Really put all the work that I want to do into, make sure everything's just right, and then leash it upon the world. I would hate to like get on a monthly book and it not be what I want it to be. I think it would have to be something that I would like fully paint too. I would probably not be willing to hand my line work off to somebody else. As talented as like the colorists and the people that work at Marvel are, like there's amazing people in their talent pool. Um, I'm at this point now in my career where I have to have everything just the way I want it to see it. I hate to put a scene across to a colorist and he takes it in a totally different direction, which is fine. It's his vision, but I had that vision for that scene to be this color. Why did he do it that way? It's I don't want to hold that against anybody. So not only would I have to maybe uh, illustrate it, black and white, do all the line work and pencil work and things like that. I have to paint it too. So it would be something that would be like a passion project for me, only with Marvel characters. Um, yeah, excuse me, I am in talks with Marvel. They have left the door open for me. If anytime I want to, if they can dig up a script that, you know, I could have my way with over the course of a few months, the opportunity is always there. So I'd say to fans and to you folks out there to keep your eye out on the horizon. You never know when that's going to happen. So.
Well, when it does, we're looking forward to seeing it.
What advice would you offer to any artists who are working to break into the comics industry?
As far as advice, I would say now is like the most incredible time to be an artist, but I'll throw a caveat into that. It is as it is the also the most challenging time to be an artist as well. Obviously with all the competition you have, not only globally, but also with obviously AI and things like that. People are leaving the profession. Not going into the profession in droves. You can see our schools closing left and right. So uh, I would say have thick skin. Don't give up on your dreams. Getting up in the morning and not having to, do anything else that day other than what you love doing is unrivaled, and that makes me the most happy. Um, they always say like pursue happiness and you'll never work a day in your life. That's what I'm doing now. I pursued happiness. I worked a series of jobs over the course of my life so far, and wasn't happy with any of them. But it all worked out as long as I had thick enough skin to the point where now I can be happy, and now I can like wake up every day and do something that I enjoy doing. So I would say to art students, like, it's easy to give up, especially when the going gets tough. That's where your thick skin kicks in. Be brave, get out there, show your work. Don't be afraid to get critiques. Be accepting of critiques. Find mentors. That's compared to when I was younger. Not to date myself, but you didn't have any of this stuff we have today. You don't have access to an artist that you admire just a click away or a tap away on your phone, and you can message them, and they'll 9 times out of 10 they'll respond to you, and it's like amazing. Like, how did I could never envision that 30 years ago when I was struggling in this industry, or struggling to just be an artist, let alone be in this industry. So the tools are out there for a lot of younger people wanting to get into this business. Um, and just develop your own style too. Like, style is so important, I believe. Now, style is still something in the back of my head, I struggle with too. I feel like I don't, have enough of a voice, with my work. I could use more of a voice. Maybe I need to just, distinguish myself more, but that's just the inner like critic on my shoulder telling me that. So yeah, stick to it and pursue your dreams, and happiness will follow.
So, are there any upcoming projects that you would like to share or promote with our listeners?
I'm doing a series of variants, so you can keep an eye on your solicits, your comic shop solicits, to see what I'm being featured on next. I am working on a very big project for Marvel next year. I don't want to talk too much about it because we're still in the early works, but it's on the level of like, it's an event book, so it's on the level of this year's Marvel Thunder Doom. So keep an eye out for that. Um, and yeah, just keep an eye on my Instagram too. I'm always working on commissions and things like that, and I'm taking the fall to do work on some backlog commissions that I have to get done. So yeah, I'm just having fun making books, and there's a lot of things that are in the works right now I can't talk about. Also, now that I think about it, I'm also working with Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, on some cards for them. So recently, they released a Spider-Man booster pack featuring artwork from me. But that's the tip of the iceberg. I've been working with them steadily for maybe a year or two now, I believe. So expect a lot more artwork for all you Magic the Gathering heads out there, featuring me. So
I don't know if you just saw it, but Shane's face just lit up when you said about that.
well, I'm happy seeing Shane. Keep an eye out.
I'm definitely going to. Trust me. I tend to lean towards your covers when you do variants anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I just like your art style, not gonna lie. So
No, thanks, man. Yeah, the variants are the fun ones. Like I said, those are the ones I get to open the throttle on, a little bit, and have my way with it. So
You brought up your Instagram here a moment ago. Where can our listeners follow your work online?
well, tip of the iceberg would be on my website, which is benharveyart.com. My lovely fiance on there, she keeps that updated for me. Has all my show listings on there, where appearances, where we'll be at, as well as all my current work is on there, both published and private artwork, or commissions, I should say, are on there. I'm also on Instagram. What's it called? Blue Sky. I'm on there too. I'm on Facebook still, and yeah, a few other places too. But the best place to start at is my website. All my socials are listed on there. So
And the handle for that is Ben Harvey Art.
All at Ben Harvey Art at all across the spectrum. Yep. Type me in, I'll probably pop up somewhere.
Awesome. Well, I highly recommend everybody check that out because there is just tons of gorgeous work on there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ben. We've really appreciated having you on the show tonight and wishing you a happy holiday season here.
Shane and Nate, this is a salute from the Ben Harvey Art Studios. Thank you for having me, and you guys have a great holiday season as well as all your fans out there. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
That is a consummate artistic professional right there.
Yeah. Yeah. He kept on drawing the whole time while answering our questions. So killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, very
Clearly.
diligent, very hardworking. So, yeah, be sure to check out Ben's work wherever you can find it, whether it's online, and definitely check out any covers he's doing on series, any variants that you see pop up at your local comic book store because yeah, his work is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I told him to himself, told him personally, like I generally lean towards his variants anyway.
So, Shane, are you curious as to what we are covering next week?
Um, is it gonna be week one?
Nope, it's going to be technically the last week of the month. So it'll be our New Year's episode, but we're not going to do a episode themed around New Year's. Kind of a terrible way to word that, but it'll drop the week of New Year's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So I don't know. Is that gonna be the last Jim Lee book?
correctamundo. That'll
Figure it
be
out.
Fantastic Four, Volume 2, number 6. That is number 6 of a 13 issue run, but that'll be probably the last issue of Volume 2 we cover for a little bit. I think we're about due for a change up there.
Yeah.
But we've gotten a good sample of the flavor there, and I'm sure we'll revisit the rest of the run later on. But next week, Fantastic Four Volume 2, number 6 by Brandon Chorley and Jim Lee, which is pretty much the wrap up of the initial story arc, I would say. Or maybe the second story arc, but it really ties everything together. So
No, I'm excited to see how that ends. It was funny because when we were going through that interview, he was talking about reflections, and that issue came up in my brain about the Sue and Reed reflection off the wine glass.
yeah, I will not lie. It also came up in my brain, and I also thought a little bit about Human Torch with Mike Snow looking out over New York City and his reflection in the glass. Well, true believers, as always, your feedback is important to us. We would highly appreciate it if you left us a 5-star review on Apple or a comment on Spotify. It really helps the show out a lot. Of course, you can subscribe to us on your preferred listening platform so we show up in your feed each and every week. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Amazon now, and various other podcast platforms. Social media wise, you can find us on Facebook at the Fantastic Four Fancast, where we encourage you to engage in FF related discussions and share Fantastic Four related content. I reiterate this every time, and so far everyone's been good about it. Just adhere to the group rules and be respectful of your fellow posters. You can also follow us on Instagram at Fan4Fancast. That is FAN, the number 4, FANCAST. And finally, you can contact us by email with your feedback and suggestions at fan4fancast@gmail.com. Again, that is FAN, the number 4, FANCAST @gmail.com. Shane, do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners this week?
Besides doing, like he said, besides doing the variant covers, you can go buy yourself some packs of MTG and see if you pull one of his cards, or you can go on TCG Player or eBay, whatever, and pick them up.
Or you can reach out to him on benharveyart.com and get some artwork as well. Once again, true believers, for Shane Murray, I'm Nate Charles. We appreciate you joining us here this week. And until next week, stay fantastic.